Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Claire, unaware that her carefully constructed web of secrets was on the verge of collapse, sat rigidly in the polished leather chair of her office at Showdown, her fingers drumming nervously on the mahogany desk as the faint hum of the city outside mirrored the storm brewing within her. The door clicked open and Harrison, the young private investigator who had recently become entangled in a labyrinth of corporate espionage and personal vendettas, stepped in, a manila envelope clutched tightly in his hand, eyes darting from Claire to the floor and back again, as though measuring the exact moment of impact. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating, as he approached the desk, the fluorescent lights overhead casting long shadows across the room, emphasizing the lines of worry and determination etched into his face. Claire's composure, a delicate facade that had protected her through countless scandals, trembled imperceptibly, though she tried to mask it with a casual tilt of her head, a rehearsed smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You have proof?" she asked, her voice steady but carrying a hint of unease, the carefully cultivated calm of a woman who had navigated the treacherous waters of corporate warfare now teetering on the edge of personal ruin. Harrison hesitated, his jaw tightening as he carefully set the envelope down on the desk, nudging it toward her with a single precise movement that spoke of both urgency and caution. "It's all here, Claire," he said softly, almost reluctantly, as if delivering this bombshell weighed on him personally. "Everything you've been hiding. Every deal, every secret, every betrayal." Her eyes widened, the color draining from her face as the magnitude of the situation began to hit her. Every whispered rumor, every furtive glance from colleagues over the past months suddenly coalesced into a terrifying inevitability. Outside the office, the corridors of Showdown seemed unusually quiet, the usual clatter of heels and ringing phones absent, as though the building itself held its breath, awaiting the fallout of what Harrison had just delivered. At that moment, the sound of a determined voice cut through the thickening tension. Kyle, standing in the doorway, his expression a mixture of incredulity and fury, hands curled into fists at his sides. "Claire, what is this?" he demanded, his tone both accusatory and pained, the familial bond between them now threatened by the shadows of deceit that had been lurking unseen. Claire opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her carefully rehearsed defenses crumbled under the intensity of Kyle's gaze, the sheer expectation of truth in his eyes leaving her momentarily speechless. Harrison, sensing the escalating tension, interjected cautiously, "Kyle, you need to see this. It's all here. There's no denying it." The envelope slid across the polished surface, stopping just short of Kyle, who snatched it up with shaking hands, flipping it open to reveal a series of documents, photographs, and meticulously recorded evidence that chronicled every calculated move Claire had orchestrated behind closed doors. Each page turned felt like a drumbeat of impending doom. The narrative they painted was relentless: financial manipulations, hidden alliances, clandestine meetings, all pointing toward a master plan Claire had executed with precision, yet vulnerable to exposure by a single determined adversary. As Kyle absorbed the shocking details, his jaw tightened, a mixture of betrayal, anger, and disbelief rippling through him, his mind racing to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the person revealed in the damning evidence. The room seemed to shrink around them, the air heavy with unspoken accusations, as Claire finally found her voice, her tone sharp yet tinged with desperation. "You don't understand. Everything I did for the company, for our legacy," she protested, her eyes darting between Kyle and Harrison, searching for a flicker of understanding, a shred of compassion that might mitigate the catastrophe unfolding. But Kyle, usually measured and controlled, felt the weight of personal and professional betrayal converge in that single moment, the betrayal cutting deeper because it came from someone so close. "For the company?" he echoed incredulously, voice rising, echoing off the high ceilings. "Or for yourself, Claire? Because it looks like you've gambled everything. Family, trust, integrity, on your own agenda." Harrison, standing silently nearby, felt the tension spike, aware that any misstep could ignite a confrontation that might spiral completely out of control. Claire's facade cracked further, a flicker of genuine fear and regret crossing her features, but she quickly masked it with a hardened glare. "You think you can understand my decisions, Kyle?" she snapped, her voice tight. You have no idea what it takes to survive in this world. Kyle, taking a step closer, slammed a hand on the desk, making the papers jump and rattle. I know enough to see that you've crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. And now everyone is paying the price. The clash of ideologies, the collision of personal and professional loyalties, made the room vibrate with intensity, a storm contained within the walls of that office. Outside, the city pulsed indifferently, unaware of the seismic shift occurring in that glass and steel corner of Genoa City. Claire, her voice dropping to a whisper, the first hint of vulnerability emerging, said, I didn't want this, Kyle. I thought I was protecting everyone. Kyle's expression softened momentarily, but only briefly, as the weight of the evidence and the betrayal pressed down upon him. Protecting everyone? Or just yourself? He countered, each word sharp and deliberate. Harrison, realizing the emotional stakes had become almost unbearable, stepped back, giving them space, yet prepared to intervene if the situation escalated further. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the occasional rustle of papers and the distant hum of the city. Claire's eyes flicked toward the envelope on the desk, then back at Kyle, a flicker of desperation and calculation crossing her face. She knew that everything had changed. The game she thought she controlled had ended, and she was now exposed in a way that left no room for maneuver. Kyle, gripping the edge of the desk, felt the full magnitude of what had just been revealed. Every plan, every secret, every deception was now laid bare, leaving nothing hidden. The tension between them crackled like electricity, a palpable force in the room. Outside, in the hall, the faint echo of approaching footsteps hinted that more drama was about to descend upon them. Alliances might shift, loyalties would be tested, and the fallout of Claire's actions was only beginning to unfold. As Harrison quietly withdrew to give them space, the three of them, Claire, Kyle, and the evidence that now dictated their fates, stood at the epicenter of a storm that threatened to engulf everyone in its path, leaving the once stable world of Genoa City teetering on the edge of chaos, with every choice from this point forward carrying the weight of irreversible consequence. And in that moment, Claire realized that no matter how clever her schemes, no matter how carefully she had plotted, the truth had finally caught up with her, and in the unforgiving world of the Newman and Abbott families, there were no second chances, no excuses, only consequences, and Kyle's demand for answers would be the first of many reckonings in the days to come, where secrets long buried would claw their way to the surface, alliances would fracture, and the fragile veneer of control that Claire had maintained would shatter completely, leaving the city to watch, riveted, as the drama of betrayal, justice, and revenge played out in real time, with each character forced to confront the sins of their past, the treacheries of the present, and the uncertain, perilous future that now lay ahead. As Claire sat frozen, the weight of Harrison's revelations pressing down like an immovable boulder, the office seemed to shrink around her, the walls closing in as memories of every calculated move, every whispered conversation, and every clandestine meeting replayed relentlessly in her mind. She remembered the countless late nights in the Abbott boardrooms, the endless phone calls made in the shadows, the subtle manipulations of contracts, and the carefully timed leaks designed to weaken competitors while preserving her image of innocence. Each decision, once a mark of cunning and control, now felt like a chain around her neck, the tangible proof in Harrison's envelope confirming that nothing, no secret, no deception, could remain hidden forever. Kyle, meanwhile, stood rigid, the shock of betrayal battling with his innate compassion, a conflict that twisted his gut and tightened his chest. He remembered Claire not as a corporate adversary, but as the sister who had shared childhood secrets, family dinners, and quiet confessions in moments of vulnerability. And yet, here she was, exposed in a way that left no room for sympathy. He could feel the brittle layers of their bond cracking under the strain of betrayal, the history of shared triumphs and hardships now overshadowed by the stark, unyielding facts laid bare on the desk. Harrison, sensing that the emotional tension was reaching a breaking point, took a small step back, his hands folded carefully in front of him, his expression one of quiet vigilance, aware that any sudden movement could ignite a confrontation with irreversible consequences. Outside the office, the familiar hum of Genoa City continued, indifferent to the personal apocalypse unfolding within Jabot's walls, but inside, the air was thick with unspoken accusations, the weight of secrets, and the inevitability of fallout that would ripple across every corner of the city. Claire's voice, when it finally emerged, trembled slightly despite her effort to maintain control. Kyle, you don't understand. I did what I had to do. I thought I was protecting everyone. I thought I was securing our future. Kyle's eyes narrowed, the mixture of fury and disbelief sharpening his features. Protecting everyone, he repeated, each word slicing through the air with precision. Or protecting yourself, Claire? Because everything I see here screams self-interest, manipulation, and betrayal. Claire flinched at the raw intensity of his words but refused to back down, her lips pressing into a thin line as she sought the words that might salvage her crumbling credibility. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, she stammered, her usual composure fractured. I only wanted stability, control, security. Kyle's gaze didn't soften. If anything, it intensified, the long history of shared childhood experiences now clashing violently with the stark evidence of deceit in front of him. Control, he echoed incredulously. You call this control? You've put everyone at risk. Family, friends, employees, everything we built. Harrison, quietly observing, felt the tension spike further. He had expected resistance, but the emotional fallout between the siblings was far more explosive than he had anticipated. The storm of guilt, pride, anger, and fear swirled visibly in the room, creating a maelstrom that threatened to pull all three into a confrontation that could destroy years of relationships and alliances. Claire's hands clenched into fists at her sides, knuckles white, as she tried to regain her composure. You don't get it, Kyle, she said, voice low and sharp. I've had to fight for everything my entire life. You think it was easy to make the decisions I made? To keep Jabot from collapsing, to make sure our family name wasn't tarnished? Every move I made was calculated, precise, and yes, ruthless. But it was necessary. Kyle's reaction was immediate, a mixture of disbelief and exasperation evident in the rapid, shallow breaths that escaped him. Necessary? He repeated, stepping closer, the shadows of the office emphasizing the stark contrast between the two siblings. Do you even hear yourself? You've manipulated, lied, and schemed your way through everything. And now, thanks to you, our family's reputation, our company, and our relationships, everything is on the line. Harrison, feeling that his presence was still necessary but wanting to avoid further emotional escalation, interjected carefully. Kyle, Claire, I know this is hard, but the facts are clear. The evidence doesn't lie. Every transaction, every secret deal. It's all here. Claire's eyes flickered toward him, a mixture of irritation and desperation flashing across her face. Harrison, this isn't about you. This is family. You don't understand what it takes to survive in this city, in this industry, in this world. Kyle shook his head, his voice rising slightly, echoing off the office walls. No, Claire. I do understand. I understand loyalty, trust, honesty, and the bonds that hold people together. And none of that was in your playbook. The intensity in Kyle's tone made Harrison step even further back, knowing the storm inside the office was now more than a simple confrontation. It was a reckoning. The air seemed to hum with electricity as past grievances, long simmering resentments, and recent betrayals collided in real time. Claire, despite her hardened exterior, felt a flicker of doubt creep in, a realization that perhaps her carefully constructed web of lies had finally unraveled beyond repair. Kyle, please, she whispered, voice faltering. You don't understand the pressure, the threats, the constant balancing act. I did it for us, for Jabot, for everyone who depends on us. Kyle's expression softened momentarily, the conflict between anger and familial love evident. He remembered nights spent planning expansions, the trust he once had in his sister, the moments of laughter and shared victories. And yet, the evidence on the desk screamed louder than memories ever could. I want to believe you, Claire, he said, voice low but firm. But how can I? Every document here tells a different story. Every hidden deal, every secret meeting. It all points to one thing. You've been playing your own game and now we're paying the price. Claire's chest tightened, a mix of panic and anger, as she realized that Kyle's judgment had crystallized. She had lost the control she so fiercely sought, and the consequences of her actions were cascading rapidly, touching everyone from Victor to Nikki, from colleagues to rivals, and even those whose lives she had hoped to protect in the shadows. Harrison, quietly observing, sensed that the confrontation had reached a pivotal point. The The siblings were trapped in a storm of emotion, their dialogue charged with raw intensity, the potential for reconciliation hanging by a thread, yet the danger of utter collapse ever present. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the familial and corporate quake shaking the very foundations of Jabot. But inside the office, time seemed suspended, every heartbeat amplifying the magnitude of betrayal and the inevitability of consequences. Claire's lips pressed together tightly, her mind racing for solutions, defenses, anything that might salvage the situation, but Kyle's gaze, unwavering and piercing, left no room for manipulation. "Claire," he said finally, voice low but deadly in its intensity, "it's over. The game you've been playing, thinking you're untouchable, thinking you're in control, is over. And now everyone who trusted you is paying the price." The words hit her like a physical blow, the finality in his tone underscoring the collapse of every plan she had meticulously executed. Harrison stepped back, leaving them alone in the tense, charged atmosphere, aware that the events of this day would resonate far beyond the walls of the office. Claire's eyes flicked to the envelope once more, then to Kyle, the realization dawning that the game had ended, and she had lost. Outside, Genoa City carried on, but within the walls of Jabot, a storm of truth, betrayal, and fractured loyalty raged, leaving no character untouched, no relationship intact, and no path forward certain. And as the siblings faced each other, the envelope of secrets between them, the city braced for the shockwaves that would inevitably spread, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted, the future of Jabot and the Numanabit legacy now hanging in a delicate, fragile balance, with every choice from this moment on carrying consequences that would ripple through Genoa City like a tidal wave, leaving devastation, heartbreak, and, perhaps, redemption in its wake. Just as Claire's composure seemed to fray completely, the office door burst open, slamming against the wall with a resounding crack that made both Kyle and Claire startle, and in strode Victor Newman, his presence commanding, his sharp eyes scanning the room as if he could see every hidden thought, every unspoken accusation. The atmosphere thickened instantly. Victor's reputation as a man who could sense deception, who could unravel the truth from the thinnest of threads, made the room feel smaller, heavier, almost suffocating. "What is going on here?" Victor's voice was low, steady, but carried the weight of authority and an undercurrent of barely contained fury. Harrison shifted slightly, stepping aside, while Claire straightened, forcing herself to appear collected, though the tremor in her hands betrayed her inner panic. Kyle, standing protectively in front of the envelope of damning evidence, turned to face his father, words rushing out in a mixture of anger and desperation. "Dad, you need to see this. Everything Claire's been hiding. It's all here." Victor's eyes narrowed, the familiar spark of suspicion igniting as he strode toward the desk, his gaze flicking from Kyle to Claire to the stack of documents that could potentially destroy everything he and his family had built. "Claire," he said, voice sharp as steel, "you've been playing a dangerous game, and it looks like the house of cards is finally collapsing." Claire opened her mouth, a protest on the tip of her tongue, but Victor raised a hand, silencing her. "Save it," he said, the room vibrating with his presence. "I've seen enough to know when someone's trying to manipulate the truth. Don't make it worse for yourself." The tension in the room became almost tangible. Even Harrison felt it, sensing that Victor's presence had transformed the emotional standoff into something far more perilous. Kyle, desperate to reconcile his father's presence with the revelations before him, quickly laid out the evidence, showing Victor every document, photograph, and recorded conversation, each piece of proof exposing the depth of Claire's machinations. Victor's face remained inscrutable at first, the master strategist weighing each revelation, every implication, the wheels turning rapidly behind his piercing gaze. "So this is what I was missing," he muttered under his breath, almost to himself, before turning sharply to Claire. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you even understand the consequences?" Claire's throat tightened, a cold sweat forming along her spine, as she realized that her schemes had not only placed her own reputation in jeopardy, but also threatened the legacy of the Numanabit alliance, the very foundation she had once sought to protect. "Victor, please," she pleaded, voice trembling despite her efforts. "I did what I thought was right. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I only wanted control, stability, to keep everything from collapsing." Victor's lips pressed into a thin line, his expression hardening. "Control? You call this control?" he demanded, taking a deliberate step closer, the room shrinking with the force of his presence. You've endangered family, business, and alliances. All for what? Your ego? Your ambition? Harrison, watching silently, knew that this confrontation had shifted into a full-blown reckoning, with consequences that would ripple through Genoa City, leaving lasting scars. Kyle, standing beside Victor, felt the weight of family legacy, personal loyalty, and ethical responsibility all converge as he faced the reality of Claire's betrayal. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the distant hum of Genoa City traffic, a stark reminder that the storm within these walls was invisible to the rest of the world yet no less destructive. And as Claire sank slightly into her chair, defeated, eyes flicking between her brother and father, a realization settled over her. The game she had once believed she controlled had ended, leaving nothing but truth, judgment, and the daunting task of facing the fallout. A fallout that would test loyalties, reshape alliances, and forever alter the landscape of power, trust, and family in Genoa City.